Welcome to Reddit Echoes, where the stories that sound too outrageous to be true actually happened to someone out there. Today's tale is a classic about kindness being taken for granted, money being stolen in broad daylight, and blind favoritism toward the family's golden child. Have you ever felt like your family treated you like an ATM or been told to sacrifice everything? Just because you're the little sister you should understand. In this episode, you'll hear about a young woman whose college savings were literally stolen by her own parents, all to fund her golden boy brother's wedding. But instead of crying in silence, she made a move so bold. She saved it for the big day and unleashed it when no one saw it coming. And yes, it's deeply satisfying. Story 1. She tried to snatch my service dog, then called the cops and said I stole it. My hands are still shaking as I write this. It happened just a few hours ago, and even after I've taken my meds, done deep breathing, and sat with Frankie, my service dog, I still can't believe a grown woman behaved this way in public. Frankie isn't just a dog. He's my lifeline, my anchor in a sea of PTSD flashbacks, anxiety attacks, and moments where I feel like I'm sinking and no one can see me. He's a certified psychiatric service dog. He wears a vest clearly labeled Service Dog, Do Not Pet, and is trained to intervene when I start spiraling. Thanks to him, I can leave the house, I can go shopping, I can exist. Today I went out to do a little shopping. Nothing special. Just trying to feel like a normal person doing normal things. It was going fine until I heard the unmistakable sound of a kid barreling through the clothing racks like a miniature stampede. I turned and saw a little boy, maybe 6 or 7, playing hide-and-seek with himself among the racks. He darted from one end to the other, shrieking with joy. No adult in sight. No apology. Just me standing there, already starting to feel my heart race, my fingers tightening around Frankie's leash. Frankie sensed it. He bumped gently against my leg, a trained signal that I was beginning to spiral. I nodded, praised him softly, gave him a quick pat, and tried to move on. And then the boy spotted Frankie. "Doggy!" He screamed and sprinted straight at us. I instinctively stepped between them and held my arm out. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, you can't pet him. He's a service dog. He's working. Can you see his vest?" The boy froze. He stared at the vest, and then started screaming. Not crying, screaming like I'd just stolen his favorite toy. He crawled under a rack and vanished. I took a deep breath and tried to ignore it. Honestly, I've been through this before. Some people just don't understand service dogs. I've learned to move on. But what I didn't know was that I was about to walk into an actual nightmare. Not even a full minute later, I heard the unmistakable click of high heels storming toward me. I turned, and there she was, a blonde woman in full glam, fire in her eyes, dragging that same boy by the arm. "What the hell did you just say to my son? Who do you think you are telling him he can't pet a dog?" I kept my voice calm. "Ma'am, this is a psychiatric service dog. He's working. He can't be touched. He's a dog. My son likes dogs. You don't get to tell him no." I gestured toward the vest. "You can clearly see it says do not pet. He's not a pet. He's a medical working dog." And then she lunged forward and grabbed Frankie's leash and yanked. Frankie followed, because Frankie's trained to follow people in case I collapse. If I faint or go unresponsive, Frankie will lead help back to me. But this wasn't an emergency. This was a grown woman trying to take my dog. I didn't think. I just screamed. Frankie sighed. That's our emergency command. Frankie whipped around, bolted back to me, and leapt up into my arms, licking my face like, "You okay, Mom?" I collapsed around him, sobbing. And then she screamed, "You stole my son's dog! I'm calling the cops!" I was shaking uncontrollably, clutching Frankie as this woman stood between me and the exit, dialing 911, reporting me as a dog thief. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. I was crouched in the corner of a fitting room, still trying to breathe, while this woman told them with fake tears and dramatic hand gestures that I had snatched her child's dog and made him cry. One officer approached me, and that was it. I broke down. My chest tightened, my hands trembled, and the tears came flooding. Frankie did what he was trained to do. He climbed onto my chest, pressed his weight against me, grounding me with deep pressure therapy. Another officer noticed. He backed off, leaned in to whisper something to his partner, and they gave me a few moments to calm down. Then they asked me gently for ID. I pulled out my wallet and handed over my ID along with Frankie's service dog registration. It all matched. One officer nodded silently. The woman, she threw Frankie's leash onto the floor and tried to storm off. She didn't get far. The police stopped her and arrested her on the spot. Charges included attempted theft of a service animal, harassment and endangerment, interfering with a working medical support dog, verbal assault of staff and officers. Meanwhile, I was given water, a chair to rest in, and all the time I needed to come back down from the panic spiral. Frankie never left my side, and I still can't stop thinking, what if Frankie hadn't been trained? What if I hadn't used that emergency command? What if the cops had believed her? I never imagined that a grown woman would act like a full-blown kidnapper, just because her son couldn't pet a dog. And I certainly never thought I'd be crouched in a fitting room, crying and gasping for air, trying to convince police officers that the dog I need to function wasn't stolen. Frankie saved me. Not just today, but every single day I'm learning how to live with this. So next time you see a vest that says, "Do not pet," don't ignore it, because you have no idea whose life that dog is keeping together. Story 2. My daughter just wanted to play hockey, but one alpha dad pushed me over the edge. I'm a single dad. I've never claimed to be the best dad in the world, but I will say this: I've raised one hell of a daughter. She's strong, she's kind, she's more determined at 12 than I ever was at any age. Her name is Jenna, and she's obsessed with hockey like it's wired into her DNA. She first tried skating at 8 at a local rec center. I thought it'd just be for fun. But the moment she stepped onto the ice, she glided like she was born on it. Since then, I've become the dad in the freezing bleachers 3 times a week, driving to weekend tournaments and cheering until my throat gives out at her girls' youth team games. And honestly, I love every minute of it. But something happened recently that I just can't get over. And I'm not the type to get angry easily. It was a regional scrimmage day, mixed teams of boys and girls across different local youth clubs. The idea was to shake things up, give kids a chance to compete together. A good concept, until the parents started murmuring. One in particular stood out. He had a team jacket with his son's name stitched on it, a booming voice, and a coffee cup the size of a toddler, like he needed everyone to know he was there. His son's name was Bryce. Big kid, confident, a little too cocky. I overheard him say to another dad, "I don't know why they're letting girls in. They need their own league. Hockey's not for princesses." I clenched the can in my hand but stayed quiet. Jenna was a few feet away, tying her ponytail jaw set. She heard him. I saw the way her eyes narrowed, not scared, just focused. Practice began. Teams were mixed up. Bryce ended up on the same line as Jenna, and I swear that boy played like his sole mission was to flatten her. First play, he skated aggressively into her lane, trying to trip her with his stick. She dodged it clean. Second play, he shouted, "Move it, Barbie." Third play, Jenna grabbed the puck blazed past 3 kids and sniped it into the net. Boom. Nobody said anything, but I saw the boys' coach raise an eyebrow. 15 minutes in, Jenna had scored 3 goals. Bryce had dropped his stick twice and wiped out once trying to body check her and missed. Midway through, Mr. Alpha Dad stomped over to the coach and barked, "My boy's getting thrown off his game because that little girl keeps getting in his way." I stood up. That was it. "You mean my daughter is playing so well your son can't keep up? Maybe he should train harder?" He turned on me. "Girls playing hockey is a joke. They're just slowing the boys down." I took a step toward him, but the coach stepped in, motioned me back. Second half started. Bryce got a center ice pass. Jenna chased. Collision. Bryce hit the corner boards, hard, flat on his back. Jenna, still upright, took the puck, scored again. The whole rink went silent for one beat. Then the applause started. Parents, most of them neutral, erupted in cheers. But Alpha Dad, he stormed the ice, crossed the boundary, screamed, "She slammed into my son." This is insane. Security had to hold him back. After the match, I waited outside the changing rooms. Jenna was inside getting changed. Bryce passed by, arm bandaged, eyes down. I heard his dad muttering to his wife, "Our boy got wrecked by a girl." What an embarrassment. His wife replied quietly, "You need to let this go." Jenna clearly played better. He glared at her, didn't say a word. On the drive home, Jenna was quiet. I asked, "You okay?" She nodded, then smirked. "They hate me because I play better than the boys." That's a compliment, right? I almost teared up. Because she was right. And because she had to carry that weight at 12 years old when all she wanted was to play the sport she loved. I used to think youth sports were about fairness, but they're not. There's still so much bias. But I believe Jenna and kids like her will change that. And one day, when Bryce is sitting in the stands, my daughter just might be captain of the national team. And that dad, he'll remember the day his son got crushed by the girl in the ponytail. Story 3. My mom kicked me out over $3, and I got the apartment instead. You wouldn't think a mother would kick her own daughter out over $3. Yeah, $3. That's a Starbucks coffee. A sad taco combo. Not even enough for a happy meal. But apparently that's the price tag on our entire mother-daughter relationship. Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm 19. And until last week, I was living with my mom in a 2-bedroom apartment she'd been renting since 2010. I'm a college freshman, work part-time at a bookstore, barely scraping together enough for tuition and my share of the monthly bills. Things were fine. Not great, but stable. Until the yellow envelope showed up. It was a rent increase notice. The landlord was bumping rent by $6 a month. Nothing drastic, just $3 more per bedroom. So instead of $300, my mom would owe $303. And me, also $303. Again, $3 extra. I was doing dishes when my mom shoved the letter in my hand. "Starting next month, you need to pay $3 more. I'm not covering your share." I blinked. Okay, chill, it's just $3. No need to make a big deal. She stared at me like I'd just insulted her ancestors. "It's the principle. You pay your part, I pay mine. We keep things clear." Which, sure, fair enough if I were her roommate. But I'm also, her daughter. I thought that was the end of it. Until the following week when I got paid but hadn't handed her the money yet. I still had 3 days before the due date. That's when she blew up, "I didn't raise you to nickel and dime me. You owe me rent." I nearly dropped my glass. "Mom, chill. The rent's not even due yet. Then pack your things. I won't live with someone so irresponsible." Wait, did she just kick me out over $3? I thought she was just mad. But nope. That evening after my shift, I came home and the lock had been changed. I stood there, backpack on, cheap sandwich in hand, feet aching, locked out of my own house. I knocked. No answer. Texted. No read receipt. Called, went to voicemail. Eventually, she replied, "Yes, I'm serious. I had to crash at my best friend's place for a few nights." Jess was more outraged than I was. "Your mom kicked you out over $3. My mom once let me slide 3 months on groceries. I felt humiliated, angry, heartbroken. Do you know how degrading it is to beg for a place to sleep because your mom wouldn't tolerate a $3 delay? I tried calling again. No response. Then I got a final text from her. "If you're not capable of living independently, don't blame me." Okay. So I decided to show her exactly how independent I could be. Here's something I hadn't mentioned yet. My mom isn't technically the tenant. The actual name on the lease, my uncle, her cousin. He rented her the place under a family assistance arrangement. Kind of a helping out a relative setup. And I had been sending my rent portion directly to him every month. So I called him, explained everything. He sighed. Ellie, she really did that to you, don't worry. I'll take care of it. A few days later, my uncle paid her a visit. He informed her that she was in violation of the tenant agreement she had signed, which specifically included a clause about providing stable housing to family. And because of that, her lease would be terminated next month. And who would get the option to stay and sign a new lease? Me. She screamed, called me a traitor, cried, "I'm your mother. How dare you steal my apartment?" I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You taught me to be independent, Mom. I'm just starting by renting my own place." She left furious and loud, but me, I don't regret a thing, because for the first time, I could breathe. No more petty fights over nickels and dimes. No more arguments about whether I was wasting money on eggs. No more disappearing snacks labeled as I just took a little bite. Now I work more, pay full rent, handle everything myself. And yeah, I'm tired, but I also feel like a real adult. I don't hate my mom, but I no longer believe that blood is a free pass to treat someone like garbage. Some people use money to control, others weaponize sacrifice, and some, like my mom, use $3 as an excuse to kick their child out of their life. Me, I use those same $3 to buy my freedom. And honestly, best damn deal I've ever made. Story 4. My stepmom made me call her aunt for 6 years, until my dad finally exposed the truth in front of our whole family. Hey, I'm Mia, and this is the story of how I was forced to live with a woman for 6 years. A woman who insisted I wasn't her real daughter, made me call her Aunt Linda, and treated me like an unwanted house guest in the home I was born into. Only, I was her biological daughter. 100% no doubt. But she created a lie, an ugly, cruel lie, so she could justify neglecting me and emotionally cutting me out of her life, in front of everyone. It started when I was 10. My mom died in a car accident. It was the worst year of my life. I still remember the funeral, the black dress I wore, and how confused I was that she wouldn't wake up anymore. My dad was the only thing keeping me together. He was quiet, kind, always trying to make me feel safe and loved. A couple of years later, he reconnected with an old college flame, Linda. At first, I was actually excited. I wanted my dad to be happy. And Linda acted sweet, at least when he was around. But a few weeks after she moved in, I started noticing something was very, very wrong. One morning, I was eating breakfast when she looked at me and said coldly, "Call me Aunt Linda. Not Mom. I'm not your real mother. Don't get confused." I nodded, assuming maybe I was being too forward by calling her Mom. Maybe she was just uncomfortable, or at least that's what I told myself. But it didn't stop. It became a rule. I was told to call her Aunt Linda at all times, even at home. And if I ever slipped and said Mom, she would glare at me and snap, "Your mother is dead." I'm not her. I was 10 years old, and I had to hear those words like they were a punishment. She was cold to me. Smaller portions at meals, constant lectures on being independent. Meanwhile, her son from a previous relationship, Kevin, a year younger than me, was treated like a prince. My dad, I honestly thought he didn't know. Linda had mastered the art of pretending. In front of him, she'd stroke my hair and call me sweetheart. But the second he left for work, it was, "You missed a spot on the floor. You're cooking tonight, might as well learn how not to be useless." When I turned 13, it got worse. She banned me from calling her Mom at school. One day my teacher asked, "Was that your mom picking you up yesterday?" I smiled and said yes. Linda was right behind me. She didn't say a word then, but when we got home, she unloaded. "What did I tell you to call me? I'm not your mother." I was stunned. "But I am your daughter." And she screamed, "I never gave birth to someone like you." I ran to my room and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. For the first time, I doubted my own existence. I dug through my dad's file cabinet looking for proof. And there it was. My birth certificate. Mother Linda M. Carson. Father David L. Carson. It was real. I was her daughter. But I didn't show it to her, because I knew she'd accuse me of faking it somehow. By the time I turned 16, things were unbearable. Kevin got a brand new bike. I got a notebook. Linda always reminded me, "You're not my real kid. Be grateful you're even here." It hurt. So much. I used to think maybe I'd done something wrong. Maybe I deserved this. My dad. He was always busy, avoidant. He traveled a lot for work. When I cried, he held me and whispered, "Just hang in there, sweetheart," for me. But then came the breaking point. Linda's mom, my so-called grandma, turned 60. There was a big family party. Everyone came. Someone thought it would be sweet if I gave a little speech since I was the eldest grandchild. I was nervous, but I walked up, took the mic, and said I want to thank Grandma for always loving me, even though I've never been allowed to call my own mother Mom. The room froze. Linda jumped up. "She's lying. She's delusional. She's not even mine. She's just David's from another woman." And then, my dad stood up. For the first time in years, he didn't stay silent. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket, a copy of my birth certificate, held it up. "Linda, you are her mother. Stop forcing her to live in your lie." Silence. Linda turned beet red. She stammered, then ran out of the room. Her mother, my grandma, looked at me with tears in her eyes and said Linda was always insecure. But I never thought she'd turn into someone this cruel. My dad turned to me, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry." I knew. I knew what she was doing. I just didn't know how to stop it without losing the family again. I hugged him and whispered, "I don't blame you, Dad. I just wanted to be allowed to call my mother. My mother." We both cried, but this time it was from relief. After that day, I never lived with Linda again. My dad moved out with me. He told me a real mother doesn't make her own child call her aunt unless she's trying to erase the fact that she ever became one. And you know what? For years I wished I didn't have a mother like her. But now I realize I had someone all along who played both roles. My dad. And he's the only parent I'll ever need. Story 5. My mom refused to fix the washing machine because only my clothes were getting ruined, until she had to wear a white dress, stained gray with sewage water. Hi, I'm Becca, 22 years old, freshly graduated from college, and temporarily living with my mom before moving out. This happened just a few months ago, and I swear if I hadn't seen this intense karma moment with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe in universal justice either. The story starts with a washing machine. Not haunted, not some deadly malfunction, just an old rickety retirement-ready machine that probably should have been laid to rest back in 2007. I noticed something was off when my white t-shirt came out with weird black-gray streaks like it had been dunked in sewage water. I showed it to my mom and said, "Mom, the washing machine's busted. My shirt got stained after a normal wash." She glanced at it and casually said, "Probably because your clothes were already dirty. Mine come out clean every time." I frowned. "I don't roll around in the mud, Mom. I wash normal stuff. It's not like my underwear's coated in dirt or anything." She crossed her arms. "Then it's just your cheap fabrics. The machine's fine. And if it's not, you're probably the one who messed it up." Wow. Thanks for the incredibly supportive response, Mom. I decided to try again. This time I washed only a single white handkerchief. The result? It came out with a coffee-colored blotch right in the middle, like it had been squeezed through swamp water. I showed it to my mom again, this time holding up the stained proof. She still insisted I wash my stuff in there every day. My clothes don't come out looking like that. I counted to 10 in my head to avoid snapping. Maybe the dirty water only leaks in when the load's too light, or maybe she cut me off. I'm not a damn engineer. And I'm not the one who broke it. If you want it fixed, call someone yourself. So I did some digging. Inside the drum, I found signs of rust at the bottom and a small crack in the drain pipe. I took pictures and got a repair quote, $75, to replace the pipe, clean out residue, and sanitize the drum. I printed it out and brought it to her. "Mom, here's the quote. Maybe we can split it since we both use the machine." She looked at me like I'd just asked her to buy me a Chanel bag. "You use it way more than I do. I wash my clothes properly, so they're not the problem. You broke it, you fix it." Me. "But Mom, this gross water is ending up on the clothes I wear to work. I can't go into the office smelling like actual trash." She stared at me like I was complaining that the universe doesn't revolve around me. "You're a girl. Who even notices, oh my God?" "Fine. You want a Cold War done?" I started taking my laundry to a self-service laundromat nearby. It cost $7–10 each time, but at least I didn't have to worry about musty-smelling bras. She, of course, continued using the washing machine at home. Washed blankets, curtains, dresses, everything, except my stuff. She even bragged to the neighborhood aunties that machine still works perfectly. Some people just break things and blame the appliance. All right, let's see how perfect it really is. The climax came during her birthday week. She had bought a long white princess-style dress to wear to her party, something she called elegant purity, though to me it looked like a weird mashup between Marie Antoinette cosplay and runaway bride vibes. She tried it on and said, "Pretty right, just bought it. Gonna do a quick rinse before I iron it." I opened my mouth to warn her, but stopped myself. Because you know what? She tossed the white dress into the ancient machine. No mesh bag, no delicate setting, no drain check, just press. Start. I stood at a distance watching the machine shake like its soul was screaming for help. 30 minutes later, beep. She opened it. I have never heard that woman scream so loud. The white dress, her elegant purity outfit, now had a giant black streak running diagonally from the collar down to the hem, like someone had dragged it through a ditch, then hung it out to dry. Her face looked like a badly distorted Photoshop job. "What the hell is this?" I calmly responded. "Oh, probably just cheap fabric, Mom. Or maybe you used the wrong setting." That hit her like a sledgehammer. She frantically scrubbed the dress with Vanish, soaked it in a tub, then blow-dried it. Of course, nothing worked. The stain had metal residue and oil, exactly what I warned her about with the leaking drain pipe. She ended up wearing a faded purple dress from 2014. At the party, her sisters asked, "Hey, weren't you gonna wear that new one? The white one you showed us?" She forced a smile. I sipped my wine and thought karma may be slow, but it never misses. 2 days later, my mom called the repair guy. I overheard her on the phone, voice soft like a guilty bunny. "Hi. I think the washing machine has some issues. Maybe with the drain and the drum. I think it needs a fix." The technician came, inspected it, and said, "This thing's leaking dirty water into your laundry. Been happening for a while." I stood behind him, arms crossed, watching her sign the repair bill. Total $85, because it had gotten worse. She glanced at me sideways. I smiled and said, "Good thing I didn't wash my white dress yesterday, huh? I didn't enjoy seeing my mom get ruined clothes. But I did feel a little satisfied. Not because her dress was ruined, but because she finally realized the issue wasn't me. It was the thing I had been trying to tell her from the beginning. Sometimes people won't believe something until it happens to them. And next time I say the washing machine's broken, I'm pretty sure someone's gonna listen." Story 6. My parents forced me to give up my college savings for my brother's wedding. I stayed silent until the wedding day. Hi, I'm Rachel, 20 years old, and I want to tell you about the moment I realized I wasn't really their daughter in my parents' eyes, just a human piggy bank they could open whenever they wanted, as long as it was for the family. This story starts with 3 words. My brother's wedding. My brother. His name's Matt, is 4 years older than me. And he's, well, you know the type. The golden boy. He failed his college entrance exams twice, borrowed money from our parents to buy a car, and then sold it at a loss, quit jobs because they were too stressful. And yet somehow he was still their pride and joy. And me, 3.9 GPA, earned a near full-ride scholarship to a state university, worked part-time, never owed anyone a dime. But guess what? When Matt announced he was marrying his girlfriend, someone he met on Tinder just 7 months ago, my parents practically jumped for joy. Do it quickly. There's nothing better. We need to make it grand. You only get married once in life. The only problem, they didn't have the money. And instead of admitting that, they turned to me. One evening after dinner, my mom casually said, "You've got over $8,000 saved from your scholarship and part-time work, right?" I nodded cautiously. "Yes. I saved that for dorm fees and textbooks." She smiled softly. "Then let Matt borrow some for the wedding. We're family after all." I froze for a few seconds. Borrow? How much? My dad walked in holding a glass of water. $6,000 should be enough. Your brother will pay it back. After the wedding. I stared at them like it was a joke, but their faces were dead serious. Not a flicker of hesitation. I replied, voice calm and steady, "I'm sorry, but I can't. That's money I've saved for my future, and I don't think spending it on a wedding is reasonable." My mom's eyes widened. "Don't be so selfish. We're all one family. How can you be stingy over a few thousand?" My dad's tone hardened. "Family comes first. When it's your turn to get married, we'll help you too." I let out a short laugh. "But you don't have $6,000 to help me, do you?" Silence. And that's when the Cold War began. Passive-aggressive muttering, side-eyeing me at every meal, snide remarks. Well, I guess having a daughter just means learning how cold a woman's heart can be, nickeling and dimming her own flesh and blood. And Matt. He sent me one message: "I thought you cared about your brother." Blocked. The following week, I found out someone had transferred $6,000 from my bank account without my knowledge or permission. How I'd once saved my bank info and password in my browser. They had stolen my money. I confronted them. No denial. No apology. We have the right. You live under our roof, eat our food. I stood there stunned, then walked to my room, locked the door, and started planning. Not to get the money back, to get my dignity back in a way they'd never forget. I kept going to school, kept working. On the side, I enrolled in a fast-track online course in digital marketing. I started freelancing, designing ads, writing blog posts, running social media campaigns. Anything and everything, day and night. 3 months later, I had saved almost $6,500. I said nothing. I bought a plane ticket, rented a small room, got a full-time internship at a startup. And then on the day of my brother's wedding, when the whole extended family gathered and my parents beamed with pride about their storybook perfect son's wedding, I showed up. With a letter. Not a congratulatory one, but a printed copy of the unauthorized bank transfer. I had made several copies and handed them to every single relative at the wedding, each with a little note attached. This is how my parents taught me about family. They took their daughter's college savings without asking to fund their precious son's wedding. Enjoy the party. You cannot imagine the chaos. The bride cried. Matt screamed, "You ruined my life." My parents turned purple with rage, denying everything. But those prints had timestamps, recipient names, transfer IDs. Nothing to argue with. My uncle, a very upright man, pulled me aside, gripped my hand tightly, and said, "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Right after the reception, I moved out. No goodbye. I started a new life. It was cold, it was lonely, but it was mine. I still keep that money not to spend, but as a reminder. Without respect, family is just a toxic contract. Today I'm doing fine. Still studying, still working. But most importantly, I get to decide what happens to my life. And my old family, haven't heard from them. Maybe they're still busy paying off that ridiculously fancy wedding. I don't need an apology. because what I got back wasn't $6,000. It was the right to say no to injustice. Not everyone has the courage to stand tall in a family that expects you to always bow your head. And sometimes, to reclaim your respect, you have to print out your bank statements and hand them out like flyers at a wedding. Was it harsh, maybe? But sometimes harsh is the only language people understand, especially those who demand your sacrifice without ever giving anything back. Thank you for sticking with us until the very end of this story. If you've ever been in a similar situation, forced to choose between staying silent or doing something outrageous just to protect yourself, share your story in the comments. Who knows, your experience might just become the next episode on Reddit Echoes. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell because you won't want to miss more raw, real-life stories that hit harder than a K-drama twist.